What if one of the biggest environmental disasters in history wasn't caused by factories, oil spills, or pollution, but by removing a single animal from the ocean? That sounds impossible, but it's true. And the deeper scientists looked into it, the stranger the story became. Back in 1846, whale hunting wasn't just a business. It was an economic powerhouse. In fact, it was one of the largest industries in the United States. Whale oil lit homes. Whale products powered machines. Entire fortunes were built on creatures swimming silently beneath the waves. At first, it looked like a perfect system. The more whales humans caught, the more resources they gained. But there was one problem nobody saw coming. The ocean was quietly changing. As whale populations collapsed, something unexpected happened. Fish and krill didn't explode in number like many people predicted. Instead, in many areas, entire marine ecosystems became weaker. Why? Because whales weren't just consumers. They were engineers. Every time a whale surfaced from the deep ocean, it transported nutrients from the dark depths towards sunlight-rich waters. Nutrients that tiny organisms desperately needed to survive. But here's the strange part. The most valuable thing whales were giving back to the ocean wasn't their bodies. It was their poop. Yes, whale poop. As bizarre as that sounds, whale waste is packed with iron and nitrogen, two ingredients that act like fertilizer for microscopic plankton. And those plankton support nearly the entire marine food chain. Without them, everything begins to suffer. But that's not even the craziest part, because those tiny plankton were doing something that could affect the entire planet. And once scientists discovered what it was, the whale story stopped being about oceans and started becoming a climate mystery. Here's where things get weird. The tiny plankton supported by whales are some of the most important organisms on Earth. They don't just feed fish, krill, and countless sea creatures. They also pull enormous amounts of carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. Every day, these microscopic life forms absorb carbon from the air. And when they die, much of that carbon sinks to the bottom of the ocean, where it can remain trapped for thousands of years. In other words, the ocean has its own natural carbon removal system, and whales help power it. Suddenly, the story isn't about saving whales. It's about regulating Earth's climate. But what happens next changes everything. Scientists discovered that whales themselves are massive carbon storage units. Throughout their lives, they accumulate huge amounts of carbon inside their bodies. Then, when they die naturally, their bodies sink to the ocean floor. That carbon sinks with them, locked away for centuries. Now think about the opposite scenario. What happens when millions of whales are removed from the ocean before they can complete that process? The answer is disturbing. Less carbon gets stored. Less plankton gets fertilized. Less carbon dioxide gets removed from the atmosphere. And the planet becomes slightly warmer. One species, one chain reaction, global consequences. And this creates a shocking contradiction. For decades, humans viewed whales as resources. But the more we exploited them, the more we unknowingly weakened one of nature's most powerful climate defense systems. And that realization completely changed how scientists looked at these giants of the sea. But the biggest twist was still waiting beneath the surface. When commercial whaling reached its peak, populations of many whale species crashed dramatically. Entire generations disappeared. And with them vanished one of the ocean's most important ecological forces. Today, whaling is banned in most parts of the world. But the damage didn't disappear overnight. And this is where the story takes an unexpected turn. Even after decades of protection, experts believe many whale populations may not recover to even half of their original numbers by the end of this century. Think about that. More than 100 years of intense hunting created consequences that could last hundreds of years longer. But here's the fascinating part. Scientists estimate that restoring whale populations closer to historical levels could remove vast amounts of carbon from Earth's atmosphere every single year. Not through advanced technology, not through giant machines, but through a natural process that evolved over millions of years. The solution was swimming in our oceans all along. Suddenly, whales stop looking like giant animals. They start looking like climate allies, living carbon capture systems, ocean gardeners, guardians of an invisible balance most people never knew existed. And yet, one mystery remains. How many other species are quietly holding our planet together in ways we still don't understand? If removing whales could ripple through food chains, ecosystems, and even the atmosphere itself, What other hidden connections are waiting to be discovered? And if nature's balance is far more fragile than we imagined? What happens if the next missing piece disappears before we realize how important it was?